Hey guys, thanks for checking out the interview of our YouTube version with Slash and Sam Cooke. The reason why you're seeing me right now is because I made a mistake. Basically, long story short, from switching from our old format in the studio to our new format on Zoom calls and whatnot, we're still learning the best way to record these. And long story short, I fucked up and there's about 3 to 4 minutes of the beginning that is cut off. The footage is gone. But I'm here right now to let you know what you missed so you're not lost going into this conversation. But basically, we kind of lead into talking about Sam's experience of getting discovered by YTV and being on UhOh. And she basically went to the building to apply for something else, got in a little fender bender in the parking lot, and seemed like a civil situation because during that fender bender, I guess one of the casting directors for UhOh was involved and told her to come back and try out. So that's going to get referenced later on in the conversation. And also, this may or may not be referenced later. I forget, I gotta listen to this back. But beyond Sam being a television and media personnel, she's also a college professor. And for one semester, she taught me in a media course, and I was a bad student at the time. And I was skipping everybody's classes except for Sam's because I thought Sam was so cool. Like, I used to watch her on TV and whatnot. But I tell her about the one day I did skip class. I was hungover, and I had this roommate who would always play the country music channel, CMT. So she turned that on in the morning, and I ended up taking a nap on the couch, consciously knowing I'm missing Sam Cooke's media class. Then all of a sudden, I hear a familiar voice, and I spring up, almost have a heart attack, thinking Sam came to my house to hunt me down for skipping school, but there she was on the TV in a country music channel, and I didn't even know she was on that station. So yeah, that might get referenced later on in the conversation. And yeah, beyond that, we're gonna dive into this. And right now, she is in the middle of telling us about her first start in media. She was interning at the David Letterman show, and I asked her, like, did you get to hang with Letterman? Did you get to hang with Dave? She was telling me not too much, but she's homies with Paul Schaefer. So we hop in there. So here's the Creative Imbalance featuring Slash and Sam Cooke coming at you right now.
Paul Schaefer, same. Like, as soon as he found out I was Canadian, there was an instant bond there. And yeah, like I remember one day he, he said, why don't there was a couple of us hanging around, and we were talking about his glasses. And I remember he said, why don't you guys come with me? And we were able to go into his office, which was massive. And he had like a big grand piano, and he had, these like boxes and boxes of different glasses, and he was like showing us all of his glasses, and I just remember standing there going, is this for real? Like, wow, like this is crazy. And and we just, were we best friends? No, but we were, hey, how's it going, Canada? And I'd be like, hey, Paul. So it was just very it was cool. It was awesome. Yeah. To be honest with you, awesome is definitely the right word to choose in this scenario, because it really was.
Yeah, that's like such a crazy start too, and probably you learn so much just by seeing like just a show on that level. It's like one of the most iconic shows in America, and you kind of got to be behind the scenes and seeing how the gears worked, I guess, and everything. But yeah, that's cool. And I want to jump over to UhOh again too, because
yes,
even
people
like
love UhOh.
I kind of was that show aired in America as well, or was it only a Canadian show?
No, well, it aired across Canada on YTV, and it became so popular it ended up on Discovery Kids in the US. Okay. Then we also and it was also in Australia and Singapore. According to someone that worked for UhOh, they had said like we were huge in Singapore and Australia. The show was extremely popular. So so it was really cool. We were basically worldwide with that show.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and I was just asking because I know a bunch of Americans listen to these segments too, so I'm like, oh, are they gonna know what I'm talking about or whatever?
Yeah,
it was just such, like, especially in Canada, it was such a fun, iconic show, and it's just like mix of like a game show, like trivia, and like kids getting slimed, and like it was fantastic. So you told me about like bumping the car and then getting asked to go to the audition. And how was that audition like? Like, it sounded like you were kind of going into it like blindly, like, I don't know what this is, and like...
Yeah, it was. It was kind of new for me because I had, just got back from Letterman. I hadn't really auditioned for anything before, and I knew it was for, so I guess for those people that are in America right now, the best way to describe this particular show, it's like Nickelodeon. That's what YTV is, and it's Nickelodeon in the States. And it was just basically a show where we slimed little kids. And for the audition, I remember them saying to me that you're going to be auditioning for the role of a referee. So I was like, okay, that's all I knew. So I basically went home, contacted a girlfriend that had worked at Foot Locker. She lent me her referee jersey that they wear in that store. I don't know if they have Foot Lockers anymore. Do they? Do they have Foot Lockers anymore?
Not too sure. I've been ordering a lot online these days, with the way of the world. But I haven't been to the mall in a while.
Yeah.
But
it was kind of like a store that sold running shoes. And so anyways, long story short, I ended up going to this audition, and I remember walking in and stopping and looking around, and every single girl there was blonde and beautiful. And I just thought, oh my God, like, I'm way out of my element. And I was wearing yoga pants and this black and white striped jersey with a whistle around my neck. And everyone just turns and looks at me. They're all wearing like nice dresses. And I was like, wow, I think I should probably leave. This is embarrassing. But I stayed, and I went in, and I must have stood out because I kind of dressed the part. And and I just went in there, and I had no fear for my audition because I was deeply scared and embarrassed that I wasn't really dressed the way the other girls were. But I thought, you know what? Who cares? Like, who cares? Just go in there and do it. And I did it. And I pretended I was super confident when I was really crying inside. And I left and went, well, we'll see what happens. And within a couple of days, they called me and said, you're in, you're Slash and Sam.
Oh, amazing. That's the great origin story of Slash and Sam. And
right.
I love like kind of like the two sides of it, like how like you're confident on the outside and like terrified on the inside. I find like with like a lot of like different artists and performers, like of all different levels that I've had on the show too, it's like a common theme. And sometimes like I see like comedians on stage and they look like the most confident person, and they're just like, yeah, I threw up before that one, and just overthinking in their head. And like even a bunch of interviews I had this week too, I was like overthinking it. It's like, oh my God, this person's my hero. Like what? But then it happens, and then like you'd never know. But it's always beautiful, like in the moment when it's almost like an extra layer of going against the odds, and like when you nail it, it's like extra amazing internal victory that nobody else even knows about. But yeah, that's cool to hear.
And I think deep down, I think everybody is a little scared at what they do. I don't know if there's anybody out there that can say, yes, I am 100% amazing at my job and I have no fear. And I think when you have fear, it just pushes you to be better. I was reading an article about the founder of Amazon, and he basically, in a nutshell, was basically saying like he had to fail so many times in order to be successful. And that really spoke to me. And I was like, when you're too scared to do something, like maybe you were too scared to do this podcast or even start a podcast, I think if you just do it, and once you finish doing the first few, you're good. But being nervous a little bit is always going to be good because it's going to push you to be better and do better. So
yeah. even like, I say to a lot of people, like, sometimes, like, whatever you want to do, it's like the first step is always the hardest one. It's always the one you're overthinking. But once you do it, and even if you do it wrong, like, sometimes you'll like just learn a million lessons in that moment, and it just makes you want to do it again. It's like, okay, we're not going to do it that way again. And it's like a lot of this stuff is just trial and error, and there's no manual. And even though there's courses, and you're like a great college professor too, there's a lot of just mystery and a lot of just getting out there and trying to move and weave through everything yourself. And it's cool. Like, so you did the YTV thing, and you've been on like other stations as well. Like I found out the Funny Way on CMT and even doing like radio stuff. And how did you segue into like kind of like the music stuff?
Well, that was also interesting. While I was working for YTV, I've always had a passion for music. I love the way music makes me feel. It makes me think. I grew up with my dad playing records, the Bee Gees, the Beatles. So I really always had a connection to music, and I was a dancer since I was about 4 years old. So I loved music, and I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to get a job in radio. So I applied for this job on YTV. Actually, so I knew I wanted to get into some sort of like to radio or something along those lines, but I was scared, is basically the bottom line. So at YTV, they had this show where you could audition to be a host of a music show. And I'm like, well, that's my jam. TV, music, I'll push radio aside and my hopes and dreams, but this is what I want to do. I went to audition for the show, and they said, thanks, but we're actually looking for someone that works in radio. And I was like, you're kidding me. And I'm like, so that's it? And they're like, that's it. I'm like, all right, what if I went and got a job in radio? And they're like, yeah, okay, because it's that easy. And I'm like, well, let me try. So I ended up, sending out a resume to Kiss 92.5 in Toronto. They called me a couple days later, interviewed me, and I got my first radio gig at Kiss 92.5 in Toronto. And I went back to the producers of the TV show and said, hi, I have a job at Kiss 92.5. And they're like, well, we've actually hired somebody, but are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I did it. So It was kind of cool. And that's how I started in radio, was because I was like, no, you can't say no to me. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, that's so impressive too. And I'm sure like from even like back in the Letterman experience of like keep calling and getting that job, and then getting on YTV, and then that moment when they're like, oh, we're looking for somebody in radio. For some people to hear that, they might be like, okay, this is impossible, and just like not go for it. But you're kind of like, okay, things are possible if you really like drive towards them. And I think that's like one big secret that to like all this like media and everything, to just give her your best. And like, it's cool how you just quickly link that puzzle, and it's like, okay, I'm back. I did the thing you wanted. But
yeah, and it's so tough. Like back then, I feel like it was a little bit easier. Now with social media, there's just so much, and I feel that so many people are so stressed out all the time because they're trying to stand out on all these different platforms, and it's really, really hard. With podcasting and vlogs and whatever, it's a lot. So I think that it's a little bit harder to go out there and get what you want, because it feels overwhelming. Maybe that's just me, but I typically feel extremely overwhelmed. And when you're seeing all these people like, I got this job and I got this job, you're like, oh my goodness. And all of a sudden it feels like impossible to do. So I do feel with social media, it's a bit harder to kind of push forward, I guess. I don't know if you find that as well.
Yeah, actually, and like another thing I learned too, like very recently too, is like sometimes you can put these seeds out in different places, and then you won't hear from them, and you'll forget about them, and then just later, like even like I had a beautiful one just spring up this week, and I forgot about it, and it was like a really big deal for me for a guest, and it's just like, okay, like remember you messaged us, we're sorry we didn't get back to you, and bam, and just things connect. So yeah, you just gotta keep chipping away, and like if you really believe in whatever you're going for, or like your platform or anything, you just gotta keep putting those seeds out there, because who knows, like it might not be overnight. And I think a lot of people, like they'll get discouraged if they try something and they don't get a result immediately.
Yes. And you know, I'm the same way. Like I'm the same way too. You know, I'll spend hours and hours and hours editing something or recording something, and I'll put it out there, you know, and only a few people watch it. And honestly, I should be grateful that even those few people watched, but now it's embedded in your brain. It's numbers. And, you know, I think that, you know, and sometimes it's the simplest thing. Like you'll just go, oh yeah, let me just take a selfie, click. And then you're getting like, you know, hundreds or thousands of likes. And you're like, wait a minute, I spent hours doing that, but this picture. So, but I did want to say too, and I want to throw it back at you, you know, Creative Imbalance, you've been doing this for a while, and I wanted to ask you, like, how many podcasts have you done?
I'm about like a little over 120. Currently, I'm doing a relaunch, and I banked about 8 of them, and you're going to be included of this. And just kind of took a break during the COVID stuff and to rebrand, because I was doing this out of a studio as well. And so, I didn't add the video element to it. Everything was like just on Spotify, iTunes. So, this is a huge like little rebranding going on. And I actually like, even though like this is probably going to be labeled episode 128 or 130 or something, it feels like this is a reset button on everything in a very good way. Like everything's kind of leveled up. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing, like, I'm super proud of you. I knew you were like over 100. I just didn't know the number. That's why I was asking. But I feel like a lot of people who do podcasts, they start off strong. And that's like me. I started off strong. My numbers were good. And then, you know, life happened and I kind of dropped my podcast. And I feel like that happens with a lot of people, and they start this podcast, they have this great idea, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. And they get to like maybe 20 or 50 and they stop. So I hope that you continue to keep doing this, because to do over at even 100 episodes is phenomenal. And I think that, you know, you've learned so much doing that, and now you're growing and rebranding, and that's amazing to me. So I'm super proud of you, and I hope that you keep it up, because
thank you, Sam. That means a lot coming from you.
And even like even though I've done like 120 or whatever, my interviewing journey is beyond that. I've probably done thousands of interviews in a way, but it was always for like different websites and stuff like that, and I could never really be my own voice. And even around that, like when I knew you and like left and moved to Toronto, all I had was like a camera, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just like, I kind of like this, and I was flowing through all these different like underground arts, from like comedy, battle rap, like pro wrestling, just like filming all my interests, and it kind of gathered this community of what's going on in Toronto and people knowing me, and that's what turned into the Creative Imbalance, because I was like, oh, there's so many of these unknown stories going on, but now it's turning into where instead of me finding guests, it's like I'm getting like a lot of publicists hit me up like, oh, talk to this artist. I'm like, oh my god, I'm a fan of this. So it's I feel like it's very like meant to be, where it's like for many years I was just kind of lost in the jungle, and then me doing so much random stuff kind of all like connected together, and like I'm so thankful for that too. So there's something about this show where I don't feel like I'm just gonna drop it, you know. It's like such a, it's almost like a weird cosmic thing in many ways that happened to make this platform. But obviously you at early days planted some seeds of me like enjoying media and stuff like that. And but it's really cool. And you mentioned your podcast too, which I think is awesome. And I loved the episode with Eric Johnson, actually.
Oh yes.
And actually, like when I started the Creative Imbalance, he was like was like one of my first episodes too, probably like episode 6 or 7. And yeah, it was just a really cool talk. And I love that format too that you guys did. It's like very loose and stuff. Do you want to let me know a little bit like what inspired you to do your own podcast as well?
I think that I just feel like I have a lot to say. And then, and being on radio, I loved being able to express myself. But what I love even more is that, I genuinely feel people are good. And I wanted to interview people that they didn't know it. And I don't even know if they still do. But I every single guest I picked because I knew deep down inside they had a really good message to tell. Mm-hmm. And I always interviewed them and pulled that out of them without them even knowing. And so I didn't want it to be just a random willy-nilly person. I wanted them to come on and spread their joy to other people. So that's kind of how my podcast started. And it was just basically, can I do it? I'm going to try. And then like you, people started saying, okay, I want to be on your podcast. I want to be on your podcast. And I was doing really well, but then life happened. My mom's dementia got worse and I had to stop my podcast. So now that things have settled down a little bit, I'm going to rebrand. I'm going to come up, I have ideas of how I'm going to rebrand, and hopefully that'll happen within the next, couple months, and I'll get started again.
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear, because it was such a good format, and obviously, like, you're a seasoned interviewer. It's just it was smooth, like how it flowed and everything, and even it's cool that you mentioned that you're so selective with the people you choose, and that's similar to me too. And like, even what's funny too is sometimes, like, for an example, like I'll have a hip hop artist on the show, and then I'll get a ton of messages like, "Oh, my cousin's a rapper. He should go on the show," and stuff. But yep. I'm just like, no, you guys aren't really like listening. There's like a deeper message to these segments. It's not just like I'm not just picking somebody with like one SoundCloud song or whatever, right, where I encourage them, like, keep doing your thing and maybe like build a little story, and then maybe I can talk to you. But it's just like, I'm not just like picking everybody, there's like it's a little,
but it's good that people want to be on your show. I think that's amazing. I mean, that speaks volumes for the type of podcast that you do. So it's really good. That's fantastic that people are coming to you. So and to have 100 different podcasts, or over 100, is phenomenal to me. I think it's amazing. I'm super proud of you.
Thank you so much, Sam. Yeah, too, and also too, I wanted to like talk a little bit. It might be like a tough subject too, but I saw your post yesterday about seeing your mother, and yeah, my heart's out to you and your family and stuff. But like, I know a lot of people, like, they're kind of like talking about like this COVID, like anti-masking stuff and everything. But you were heavily affected in your family life from this, and not even being able to see your mother, who's in care right now since March. And you got to see her yesterday. Am I correct?
Yeah, I did, for the first time. It was very emotional. The story is super sad, and my mom, was diagnosed with dementia, and my dad went from being a husband to all of a sudden a caregiver, and he worked really hard at trying to keep her home for as long as possible. And there are many people on the internet who say how cruel it is that we had to put her in a long-term care home. But the fact is, she gets excellent care. And, if you're living with someone with dementia, it's 24 hours a day. It's not, like the kids are asleep, we can have some me time. It's that, she was always awake and always busy. So that hard decision was made, and we waited for a long time to get her into long-term care. And this year, in January, out of the blue, we got a call saying that, this home that we really liked was accepting her. And when they call and say there's a bed, you don't get to go, well, let me think about it. it's you have 5 days to pay us and move in, period. So it was really hard on my dad and myself, but my dad especially. And he had to make that decision. And, now he's, living in the house by himself, and it's really hard. And so we, as a team, my dad and I, we decided to, be grateful. And we kept going in and visiting her every day or every couple of days, we take turns. And then COVID hit. And within 6 weeks, we weren't even used to the fact she wasn't living at home anymore with my dad. Then all of a sudden it was like, now you can't see her. So he went from, being married to her, losing her really with the dementia, to now she's not even living with me anymore, to now you can't see her anymore.
Oh,
so it is a nightmare. And, and then all of a sudden it was like, now you can't come in, you can't touch her, you can't see her. There were Zoom calls, but my mom didn't understand what was happening. So it was really tough. So to make a long story short, having the premier talk about the new rules and regulations of going to visit your loved ones, it's good, but I mean, it's sad. It's sad, but I understand it. So instead of seeing my mom through a pane of glass, I got to see her, at the opposite side of a table through plexiglass in a mask. And it was really, it was hard. It was hard to see her when she knew it was me and she wanted to come towards me to hug me, and then they pull her away.
Oh man. And she probably didn't understand what's going on. And even people, I don't know, even it's hard for us to process what's going on too. It's just every day, and oh man, that's really tough. And
but is it a blessing? Is it a blessing that people with dementia don't know what's going on? Because I don't know about you, but for me, I know so many people who are affected by COVID-19. I know people that have been in the hospital. I know people that can't still smell and taste. I know so many people that are affected. I also know so many people that go, it's not real. Yeah. This is not a real thing. So I know people on both sides. So my anxiety is through the roof because I am hearing all these stories and I'm seeing firsthand, friends on ventilators and in hospitals. But if you have dementia, I wonder if the blessing is they don't know what's going on in the world. And when you don't know what's going on in the world and you're oblivious, maybe they're happier. I don't know. That's how I have to look at it. Maybe it's not knowing
perspective, to think of that too. So yeah.
Because I don't know. Because seniors in long-term care homes, they know, the ones that don't have dementia, they know that COVID's going on and they're not allowed to hug their loved ones, and they're going downhill because they're not touching people and hugging people. So I'm just wondering, I don't know why I'm even talking about this right now, but in my head, I always think maybe they're happier not knowing. Maybe that's what gets me through every day. I don't know.
No, that's an interesting perspective, and I hope they're happier, because it's true. In just even consuming all this updates and just people arguing all the time. It's I got to turn off my phone, and a lot of days it's luckily I've been doing this show crazy for this relaunch, because it's just making me just think of art and media and celebrating people, and I've been in that kind of bubble for the most part. And then sometimes I'll just go on my phone and just for little updates and stuff like that, and then I'll get lost in just people arguing. It's masks do nothing and blah blah blah, and you can get so drained down. So it's interesting to think. Imagine if I didn't know exactly what's going on with everything. If just a different perspective and everything. But much love to you and your family.
Thank you. And thank you to those that are listening, whether you're listening in Australia, the States, Canada, whether you believe this is real or not. I'm not judging anybody, but I would like to say, if you wake up in the morning and you put a mask on when you go outside, or you go to the grocery store, or you get gas, I just want to thank you, because when you do that, it allows me the chance to see my mother in person. And that means so much. So I just, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, it's important for people to think about too, is especially if like they feel like they're not affected by it. It's honestly just do it for other people too, because there's people suffering right now. But
for sure.
Yeah. But also, like, I kind of want to spin it like back to your career and like the many beautiful things you do in media and everything. And one thing I noticed you've been posting a lot. You're a host on this new show, The Shot, as well.
Yes.
And I'm pretty new to that too. Is it kind of like an American Idol like talent show type thing going on, or?
Yeah, it's actually a very unique idea in the fact that it takes different elements from different shows and wraps it into one. It's basically a show where they help develop artists. So instead of singing cover songs and you win based off of your voice, you're winning based off of a lot of elements and becoming the whole package. And what's really cool is the show really works on developing these artists from branding to songwriting. And it's really cool. So there's not many shows out there that showcase that. There's a lot of people that go, okay, you know what? I can sing, I can write. Yeah, I know how to brand myself, but what do I do next? So this show takes those people and basically puts a bunch of judges in front of them, and these judges mentor them throughout the season. And then someone is basically crowned the winner, and they win some really cool prizes. And last year was my first year being a part of it, and it was unbelievable. We were recording in some of the best spaces in downtown Toronto, and the talent. It's sad for me to think that some of these people, if this show didn't exist, these talented people would be at home, still sitting in their basement going, yeah, I don't really know how I'm going to make it, but, and this is kind of a stepping stone. So it's really, really a cool concept. And this year it's being done virtually. So it's a little bit new for the show, but they're doing it and it's successful, and it's a cool experience. So I recommend anybody who is thinking on, how do I become an artist? How do I get noticed? Help me with branding, help me with songwriting. To check it out. Singfortheshot.com is the website, or just look up The Shot on Facebook or any social media platform, and you'll be able to check it out. And maybe you'll be on The Shot next season for season 9.
Yeah, no, that's I keep losing my voice. Too many interviews this week.
Man.
But I love it. But anyways, like, I was gonna say that's amazing. Like, I just feel like more things like that for artists to get known, or just even like have different outlets, is important, because like I find like in kind of Canadian media, they've been depleting over the years. And even yesterday I did an interview with Strombo, and he was telling me about the old Much Music days, how it was very like come on in, and now it's just like doors locked. It's just like tinted windows. And that vibe's been missing in like Ontario, where when I was growing up, it was very prevalent, and even venues to play and everything. So it's cool to hear like this whole format of the show you're hosting, the Shot, and that just, it makes me happy. There's just another avenue for people and everything.
Yeah, they've worked really hard on coming up with a concept that is beneficial for people that want to move forward in this industry. So it's very cool. And like I said, as you know, I love music, so this was like a perfect fit for me. So
yeah, it's perfect. Like, it's a little bit of everything of like the Sam Cooke thing. Like, it's like you're meant for that, Yeah. I feel so. I feel like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I'm excited for you to bring the podcast back too, as well.
Yes.
Like, when the time's right. It's tricky times right now and everything. But are you going to do anything differently with it, or kind of keep the same format, or?
I think that I'll probably keep the same format. It's been going really well, and I'm wondering about relaunching the name. So that's kind of where I'm stuck right now, because if you have like a Google Mini or whatever, and you say, okay, play Sam Cooke Live, which is the name of my show, it actually plays Sam Cooke, the singer, playing live. So people were having problems finding my podcast. So it's become a huge issue. More people are saying it's too hard to find. So that became a problem. So now I'm like, ugh, and I don't want to rebrand my name, but I'm going to have to. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. And as soon as I have a name, I'm back.
Yeah, maybe bring back
Slashing,
you know?
Slash and Sam, baby. Yeah,
she's back.
Maybe that might be an idea. So
yeah,
we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to pick your brain about like this awesome career you had in media and television too. And this may be putting you on the spot, but is there like a pinnacle like moment of like just doing this over the years of like, this is my favorite either interview or just day being on set, or just, I know must be like so many, but there's a lot. I've met a lot of cool people, and there's literally 2 stories that popped into my head. The first one would be Keith Urban. During my career, I've had the amazing opportunity to interview him several times. And I remember back in the day interviewing him in Hamilton. He came to Hamilton and they said, don't ask him this. You can't ask him this. Let me see your questions. Okay, here they are. And that's the worst too, when you can't just say what's in your heart too.
Right. So I was like, all right. So I did the interview and he was all right. But when you're younger and you're like, oh, one day I want to meet this person, and you have these big expectations. And I was kind of like, huh. And I just didn't feel it when I interviewed him. And I thought, okay, I was a little disappointed. Then Keith meets Nicole Kidman. Then I get the chance to interview Keith again. Wow, what a difference. That man was completely different since meeting her. The interview, nobody said, don't ask this, don't ask that. And it was just one of the most amazing interviews I ever did. And I realized that, you know what? Not every pop star or singer is going to have a good day. And you don't know the struggle that someone's going through. And to have someone interview you every day, all day, it must be exhausting. And I realized at that point, like, he was at a downward spiral at that point in his life. And to see what love did for him was unbelievable. And then I interviewed him again after that. And he was just everything you would want Keith Urban to be. He was that and more. So I'm so happy for him. So that's one interview that really stands out, and one person that stands out. And the other one is, I remember being at the Late Show and I was heading home, and I left out there's a side door to the Ed Sullivan Theater that we would go out. And I remember leaving and somebody went, "Hey." Yeah. And the guy's like, "You want a picture with me?" I'm like, yes. And he's like, all right. And so he calls his guy over and he says, "You got a camera?" And I just happened to have one of those Kodak disposables in my bag. So I'm pulling it out and looking at him. Yeah. I'm like, is this happening right now? Okay. And he's like, "Come over here." I'm like, all right. So I go and stand beside him. All right, here we go. The guy takes our picture and he goes, "Nice to meet you." I'm like, "Okay, thanks, James Brown." And then I left. And so I literally have a picture with me with James Brown.
And he asked you for a picture.
Yeah. "You want a picture?" And I'm like, okay, I don't know if we're allowed to do this or not, but it was kind of in this little space where no one could see. Like, it was downstairs on the way out. So I knew, okay, if my bosses see me, I'll say it wasn't me. He asked for it. So I was like, all right. So I'm so glad I have that picture now, because it just reminds me again, human, he was super nice to me. I didn't beg him for a photo. He asked me, and I was like, all right. And so it's a cool photo that I have that, I hold dear to my heart, because, he was a great performer.
Absolute legend. One of the best performers of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was probably like, "Oh, I'm a big fan of, let's get this person."
Yeah. But you know what? I guess that goes to show you too, no matter how big of a rock star, pop star, actress, or whatever social media influencer, when you take the time out of your day just to be a nice person, you know, you don't know how you're going to affect that person's life. So I think that's super important. In fact, I think that's with anybody, like as long as you are kind and nice. And I think that helps the world go round, really, especially in this day and age. Yeah,
I agree too. And even like I've noticed like a pattern too of doing this series and doing interviews for like other websites and stuff. I find like not all the time, but very often some of the nicest people I come across are the ones that are the most successful. And I think there's something to that where if you put out that energy, people are going to want to work with you. They're going to want to like stand behind you and believe in you and like push your music or comedy or whatever in all these different directions too. And like, that's one thing I always like try to preach, be nice to everybody and like in a genuine way, even though like I kind of make it out like, oh, it'll come back tenfold, but it's just be an awesome person. And like, I don't know, I feel like one way or another, it's like you receive the energy that you push out in life and everything.
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm struggling right now, is because a lot of my energy is anxiety around COVID, anxiety around, oh my gosh, is my new podcast going to work? Anxiety around, oh my goodness, like, you know, am I ever going to get to see my mom or hug my mom in person? So when you have all these anxieties, you know, I think that stops you from moving forward. So I need to learn myself after all these years. I still need to learn to go, okay, calm down, bring it back to the surface, you know, and things will work out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's understandable too. It's like in your position and everything too. It's really tough, like to see your mom go through that too. And also like when you're doing like broadcasting and media, it's like we know Sam Cooke. It's like a smiling face and stuff. And maybe like on the inside you don't feel like that day, but then you got to turn it on, and that's got to be like an extra layer of just like weights and feeling like off and everything.
But yeah,
and I learned.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I cut you off. I was just you just by saying that, like in radio as well. That's one of the things that we teach the students, is that nobody cares about the kind of day that you've had. Your job is to go out and educate, entertain, and inform them. And you know, if you go on the air and be like, oh, I had to get up so early today, and oh my God, the kids, well, that's what everybody else is going through. And they don't want to hear that. They want to hear like positivity. And so I've learned in my life in radio that, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of day you're having. You got to push through. And the hardest lesson for me was 9/11 and being on the air that day and having to go, okay, the world's sad, the world's scared. Do I talk about it? Do I not talk about it? How do you remain positive when everyone is so fearful? And so it really taught me a lot, and it helped the rest of my radio career, realizing that people just need, you know, to be told it's going to be okay, and they need positivity. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier about just being kind.
Yeah, especially for like certain segments and stuff. Like, say, was it for like one of the country music channels you were doing was it at 9/11 or what was it?
No, it was Energy Radio.
Okay.
Energy 95.3.
Yeah. But so you think like people want to listen to that to like almost like just get some vibes, you know, and everything, and it's just like yeah, to match that on that day, like I can't even imagine. That's an insane
test of mental strength right there.
Yeah. And you yourself are scared because you don't know what's going on. And then you have to basically tell everybody else that it's okay. And, you know, you'll give them updates on what's happening, and then saying, right now it's Britney Spears on Energy 95.3. And you're like, oh my God, what is my life right now? Like, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm playing this great energetic song. And it was very tough for all the announcers, I think, across the world. It was just, you know, it was very, very tough.
Yeah. Even hearing that, I'm kind of like an empath too. When I hear these stories, like I'm starting to feel knots in my stomach. Like I'm there, even though I'm not.
Yeah. But I won't even tell you like the stories I could tell you about that are crazy, but it probably will give you more knots in your stomach. But it just made me realize that, you know, it's being an entertainer is just a hard job in general. It's very, very hard. It's not easy what everybody thinks it is, where you just wake up and people do your hair and makeup and you do your thing. It takes a lot of energy to be a performer.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they just look at the final product and they don't see all the work behind it as well.
That's right. It's
like, oh, she just goes and talks for 3 minutes and then can afford to live, and it's like, no, and even prior to that, there's years of starving, interning.
That's it.
It's wild.
And I did that. Not to cut you off again, but that's a perfect lesson for my students, is that, like, I always tell them as well, that I didn't just wake up and get Letterman, and I didn't wake up and get UhOh. I didn't wake up and get a radio gig. I worked my butt off. And, you mentioned George and Much Music. And I remember volunteering there. I remember volunteering at our local cable station. I volunteered for everything. And I think that is a skill that a lot of people these days don't do anymore. They don't value being a volunteer and doing stuff for free. Like, I'm going to do a podcast and not get paid for it. No thanks. And it's like, well, you have to kind of like pay your dues and learn to get to where you need to be. So I don't know why. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I feel like I'm in like teacher mode right now. So sorry.
No, this is good. Let's
go back to podcast mode.
no, this is podcast mode. We're just having a real conversation, and I kind of like to keep it too, like between like an interview and just like a lax convo too. I find like I'm blessed to get a few messages from the tiny following I got, or like people like they listen to this like while they're at work or just on their commutes too, and just kind of get their mind off stuff and like even learn about like their favorites. And like I know like a lot of people are going to be stoked to hear you, because there's a lot of nostalgia, especially like with my age range seems to listen to the show too, and we grew up with Sam sliming people for getting questions wrong and stuff like that. So yeah, it's also like really cool to just catch up and see where you're at right now. And it's awesome. Thanks for dropping so many gems today as well.
Hey, no worries at all. It was an absolute pleasure. Like I said, I'm extremely proud of you. I know that in this day and age, it's hard to feel motivated at times, especially now. And for you to keep going and allowing people to express themselves and have a platform to do that, I think is amazing. So I'm super proud of you. And I literally wish you nothing but success moving forward with your amazing podcast or web series or whatever this turns into when you rebrand. So I'm very, very happy for you.
Thank you so much. That means more than words I can even articulate coming from you. And yeah, I really appreciate that. It's like, even though I had you for one semester, like a lot of stuff sunk in, like through that era and stuff, and like it kind of kept with me and everything. And again, it's cool to catch up with you again.
Absolutely.
And, also, yeah, too, like with this rebranding too, it's beyond the show too. I'm kind of gonna have like these little community sections on our website where we're just gonna keep posting news of all our past guests too. So I'm gonna be keeping in touch, and when the new episodes of The Shot comes out, we'll be posting that stuff and just keep plugging everything and like making stuff grow, because I feel like something really hit me like this week too, especially like talking to George, like how many like there was like so much fire to push different artists, and I mentioned this earlier, and they seem to like kind of die down. And even though my platform's on a smaller scale, I don't know, I just want to like, instead of keep complaining about there's not enough opportunities for artists anymore, I just want to, I don't know, do something instead of just sit back and being like, oh, I wish Much Music used to be the way it used to be and blah, blah, blah. But I'm going on a big tangent right now. But
No.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. And, if I hear of any good guests, I will pass them your way.
Amazing, Sam. Once again, thank you so much for your time. Love and strength to you and your mother, your whole family, and everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you spending some time with us today.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
to the Creative Imbalance podcast can burn in hell.